This week was wild. From the weekend trap to Powell shaking the markets on Friday and everything in between, there was so much to break down. But let's start right at the beginning, because the weekend already gave us a classic setup that set the tone for the entire week. BTC printed an M formation right under the 800 EMA. That gave us our drop level 1, then price came back to retest the EMAs in the dead gap zone. From there, straight into another 2 level drops, completing the 15-minute model before the new week even began. Hi, my name is Janet and this is Trade Travel Chill. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. Quick reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. I'm not here to give you exact entries and exits. If that's what you're after, consider grabbing yourself a membership using the link in the description. Inside TTC, that's where you'll get the structured setups, live sessions, and real-time support. Before the week started, Jarrid shared in Discord that most of the major US news events were stacked towards the end of the week. That meant we had room for a textbook pattern early on, but we'd need to be ready for volatility later. The first key event was Fed member Waller's speech on Wednesday, followed by the FOMC minutes, which could confirm whether the Fed is preparing to cut rates in September. Then Thursday brought unemployment claims, the Philly Fed Index, the flash PMIs, right into the US Open, all of which had the potential to shake the market. And finally, Powell's speech at Jackson Hole on Friday was the big one. One of his most important speeches of the year, almost guaranteed to move markets. So the takeaway was clear. Early week could follow the model nicely, but from Wednesday onwards, expect the news to start driving. Now Monday was the tricky part. Once you can clearly identify the false move week beginning, the next thing to look for is the pivot into the 3-day swing. And from Jarrid's weekly pivot data, we know that 71% of pivots happen between Monday US session and Tuesday US session. So we did see a multi-session W from UK into US session that could have led us into the 3-day swing. But here's the issue. That W lacked volume through the 50 EMA. So if you were unsure whether to flip bullish, the right call was to wait for the conservative entry instead of forcing it. This is also where zooming out makes a big difference. On the 1 hour time frame, we had already completed a drop level 1. The weekend price action essentially gave us the boardroom or consolidation between levels. If you were following the 1 hour model, you'd be expecting 2 more drops, which means Monday's price action was really just a retracement for the 1 hour model. So while price action gave us the retracement on the higher time frames, Pedro was seeing the same thing in his analysis. In his latest video, he explained that before we get any real upside, the market should first sweep the liquidity. He stressed this wasn't the environment to chase big swing trades. It was a time to focus on scalps and conservative targets. He even called out the obsession with chasing massive P&L numbers, saying that mindset misses the point of trading. Pedro's bias was still for more downside before the next big swing, but he's already been buying dips and is happy to see price push lower so we can reload. In his words, this is just another red day. Easy, and nothing on the chart told him the top was in. He also covered a range of other assets beyond BTC, sharing thoughts on XRP, CRV, XLM, Link, ETH, SUI, SOL, and ADA. And while Pedro was focused on short-term price action, Silverwolf posted a blog. He wrote about Kwon's guilty plea, the man behind Terra Luna, and the 40 billion stablecoin collapse. Back in 2022, UST de-pegged. Luna hyperinflated and the 60 billion Terra ecosystem was wiped out, triggering a domino effect that took down funds like 3AC and lenders like Celsius. Actually, I remember the day before this happened, Annii put out a post in Discord alerting everyone that she felt like something was going on. She was unsure whether all of the rumors were true or not, didn't matter, and her warning was you were better off to get your money out of Celsius in case it is true. And then the next day, literally all of this happened. Now in 2025, Kwon has admitted guilt to fraud and faces up to 20 years in prison. Silverwolf's point was clear. This marks a new level of accountability in crypto, and it's a reminder for traders to look past hype and understand the risk. So this move leads us into a retracement for the higher time frames, which then puts us into Tuesday. Tuesday is the day I host the Asia live trading session where we hunt for entries together as a community. My bias was still to the downside because I was looking for that 1 hour model to complete. So I was focused on finding an entry on the 15-minute time frame. We're looking good, but there's still 8 minutes in this candle. What did the 5-minute do? Oh, not even a bearish railroad track yet. We've got 7 minutes before this candle closed. Let me just flick to Sol. So look for signs of the initial high of the day being in, right? This is 50% of the 4-hour vector, 15-minute 800 EMA, 200 EMA. Good area to start looking for spikes, but we don't have in the first side yet. I'm looking for a short, Joey, yet. Where's your stop loss going above the first peak of the M? If you're not trading Asia, wait for UK or US session, but as soon as one of these levels break, look for continuation in that direction. So let's just say we chop in here, UK break the initial low of the day, then look for bearish retest. It might be an EMA, it might be 50% Asia, but that is going to be your entry before the next leg in that direction. Okay, I'm getting in on this thing. That open. Okay, so I'm in now. I either get taken out or I survive. Hopefully. This is what happens. That's going to be juicy if we can make it to my target. That'll be a 6 to 1. Low of the week area where these vector candles are. If there's no weakness and instead we have strength, then we're targeting the liquidity below price and possibly back to 50% of this area of interest. There's a chance we don't make it there today, so you'd have to treat it as a scalp initially. That is the play. The same numbers that are on my chart update in Discord are our take profit levels. Now inside the TBD system, there's a lesson around market resets. One of them is called the type 1 reset. That's when you get an M formation that forms underneath the EMAs, which resets the model and gives you another 3-level drop. And that was the exact setup I was looking for, and lucky for us, it happened live on the call. From there, our trade pulled away nicely into drop level 1. During the Asia into UK session, we did see a multi-session W, but it was weak and it failed. All it really did was provide a retracement before we rolled into drop level 2. By that stage, our 50% take profit target had already been hit, which meant everyone who took this trade on the call was sitting risk-free. I actually took that BTC short on WEEX, which is one of the exchanges I trade on. And here's the thing, even if you already have a go-to platform, it never hurts to have multiple exchanges. Because think about it, what happens if you're in a trade and you haven't had the chance to move your stop loss into profit or take partials and suddenly the exchange goes offline? It's rare, but it happens. And if you're spread across 2 to 3 platforms, it's very unlikely that they all go down at the same time. This is something that Annii highlights in her video that I'm about to show you soon. On top of its clean layout, it also gives you the ability to open multiple positions on the same asset in the same direction without merging them. For example, let's just say you took a short position at the all-time high, so you want to hold that short for 3 days or until you get your 3 drop levels on the 1 hour time frame. So you leave that short open and then you come to the charts on the Tuesday and you see another setup presenting and you want to enter this trade as well. You can enter the second trade without it affecting the first trade you had opened, and it keeps both of the trades separate, which means you can manage the trade independently. On a lot of exchanges, if you were to enter a second trade, it'll merge both short entries and give you an average entry price. Whereas on WEEX, you can keep them separate, so you might hold this as your swing trade and open and close this one as a day trade or a scalp, so no average entries and no confusion. If you want to try it out, I've left the link below. Using it gets you a VIP 2 level straight away with a 25% discount on fees. And if you're new to the platform, I've uploaded a full WEEX tutorial on the TTC YouTube channel that walks you through everything, spot, futures and all. And it wasn't just me catching this setup, the community smashed it too. AWOL locked in 130%, Lorian grabbed 41%, For Primal scaled out and kept a runner, Carla managed her trade with textbook precision, and Scousnat closed at take profit too, proving again that it's all about management once the setup's there. Now, we didn't just short BTC, we also caught a short on Pengu, and it started to pull away nicely through here, and we got back into the area of interest that I mentioned on my call. However, this one ended up getting stop hunted before heading to our target. And this is important, not every setup is going to play out. What matters is the process. You take the high probability setup, manage your risk, and live with the outcome. One trade fails, another runs. And to add to that, Annii put out her video. In it, she explained her longer term analysis on BTC, mapping out the multiple targets below price where she's watching for her next macro entry. She also broke down the lower time frames, showing how she was still leaning towards more downside before a true reversal could form. And she wrapped it up with some thoughts around Ethereum, giving both the BTC and ETH outlook side by side. Wednesday was a slower day. Price action didn't really do much until the US session, when we finally got the drop level 3 after our type 1 reset on the 15-minute time frame, which in turn completed another drop level for the 1 hour time frame. Once we have our drop level 3, this is when we start to look for reversals, W patterns, trapping volume formations, and we actually started to see what looked like a really nice V bottom. It had speed, it had volume, and it looked like the start of a reversal. But here's the lesson. V bottoms are risky entries unless you've got multiple confluences. You want to see liquidity taken, limit orders triggered, key area of interest tapped, the right level in the model, open interest, all of that. Without those confluences, you're better off letting the V bottom play out. What usually happens is price will V bottom out, then it will recover all of the vector candles from drop level 3. After that, you wait for consolidation or an EMA retest, and then you enter in anticipation of continuation. This one though, it looked good, but it failed and we continued lower. Throughout Wednesday's price action, Pedro uploaded a video. In it, he reminded viewers about something he'd said previously, that July would likely be a tough month for altcoins, and October marks the start of Q4, which lines up with the timing for when altcoin ETFs could finally be greenlit. That's why, even as BTC was grinding lower, he was highlighting how whales were already stepping in to buy the dip. So, the message was clear. Short term still had downside risk, but the bigger picture was already setting up for what could be a significant altcoin run later in the year. So on Thursday, it was slow, dribbly price action, but open interest was soaring. And that's our cue to start looking for stopping volume candles and reversal patterns. Annii dropped a video that was honestly so freaking good. She opened up about her trading journey and shared the biggest lessons she learned from her past mistakes. It really showed the side of trading that a lot of people don't talk about, how fast things can go wrong and how brutal the ride down can be compared to the ride up. She laid out her 5 biggest lessons from her 2017 to 2021 journal. A few that stood out were, always use a stop loss. She talked about how during one massive move she couldn't even get onto the exchange. Not having a stop loss in place cost her 70% of her account. Another lesson, spread risk across multiple exchanges. For her, this was about safety. If one exchange goes down during high volatility, you're stuck without access to your trades. And 3, don't chase every moonshot. Instead of scattering across dozens of coins, she stressed it's better to focus on 8 to 10 solid plays that you actually understand and can manage. And that was just the start. She saved the best for last, so if you haven't watched that video, you should. It is one of those videos that every trader, whether you're beginner or experienced, will take something away from. Now back to the charts. Over Thursday we see the 2 drop levels on the 15-minute time frame. There should be one more to come. It is once drop level 3 is in, you start to look for the reversal pattern signs. First, you want a stopping volume candle. That ideally shows up as a hammer, little body, large wick, with large volume. So if we look at the volume in this one candle here, you can see that it is high volume compared to anything we had over the previous 5 sessions. That also completed our drop level 3 for the 15-minute time frame. I updated the community about this, so not a chart, more so a heads up. If you're in good short positions, I'd have some set take profits to partially secure profits or bank the lot. Today is Friday. We have a news event at the start of the US session and Jackson Hole over the weekend. See this post for what a typical UK session looks like on a Friday. Friday, typical behaviour. UK makes a false move at the start of session, runs the trend, then pulls back against the move end of session. Something like this. False move near the start of UK, they then run a trend near the end of the UK session, they pull back against that trend, and then they hand off to US session. US session manipulation for the first hour, either reverse reverses or continues the trend. Also news event today, that would be a good reason for volatility. So when we apply this to today's price action on most assets, you can see the false move start of session. We are now in the trend. Near the end of UK, we should see a pullback against the move. Regardless of whether price continues lower or not, I think the smart choice is to bank something around the end of UK and enjoy the weekend knowing you managed your trade well. So let me show you that on Friday's price action with BTC. We can see that Asia had a typical session. Near the start of the UK session, you see the false move to the upside. Like, it's not dramatic, but it's there. Price then ran a trend for most of the UK session. Near the end of the UK session, you see that pullback against the move before they hand off to US. That pullback against the move was the clue. And sure enough, at the start of the US session, we got the second side of a W formation. And while the charts were giving us that setup, Pedro hosted a live stream at the time of the news event and goes over Powell's FOMC press conference. The key takeaways were risk now tilt more towards jobs, not just inflation. Labour supply is weakening with demand. The Fed scrapped flexible average inflation targeting. Stable inflation expectations are no longer assumed. And most importantly, he signalled a possible rate cut in September. As soon as Powell spoke, the market reacted instantly. Bitcoin ripped, alts followed, and that US session move had real legs behind it. From there, we see US session pull back against the move and trap us into the weekend. We had the makings of another typical weekend, and at that point, it could have held and given us another swing to the upside, but instead we saw a surprise flush that dropped price to around 110,300. That wick grabbed the liquidity that had built up below price. It also flushed out anyone who hadn't taken profit on their long positions from Friday. It is at this point that Jarrid laid out the week ahead in regards to news events. He mentioned early events like Tuesday's durable goods orders and confidence data could move markets, but the real focus is later in the week. On Thursday, we've got GDP numbers and jobless claims and a speech from FOMC member Waller, all potential volatility drivers. And the big one to watch is Friday's core PCE at 8:30 a.m. New York. That's the Fed's preferred inflation metric, and coming right after Powell's shift in tone, it could be the most important release of the week. Now, aside from BTC, Annii had also been posting setups throughout the week on alts she was watching, and once again, the community took full advantage. We had for Primal jump on Sol banking 149%, Cajun Spice had a monster day catching moves across Res, Pengu, ETH, and Moonding, all setups that Annii shared within Discord, and all triple-digit wins. Muriel also locked in a solid 92% on Pengu, while MacD nailed 117%. Hazel smashed it with 497% on Ada and 41% on Link. And Ajar the Fixer caught a clean Sol entry and an insane 7,477% on Ethereum. Absolute scenes. Entry price 1,555. What an entry, Ajar. Nice one. And shout out to my mother. Happy birthday, Mum. She caught these setups completely off her own TA. She's managed trades on XRP, Ethereum, Solana, BTC, and Link, with all of those trades being coin margin, which means her profit and loss is realized in the actual asset, and all charted and executed by herself. Such a great example of trusting your own analysis. If you want to learn this strategy in detail, we've got 2 membership options inside TTC. Business class is perfect if you're an independent learner. You'll get access to all of our courses, market insights, live session recordings, and custom indicators. But if you want more direct support, live trading calls, exclusive indicators, altcoin reports, and direct access to the team, that's what first class is for. You get everything in business class, plus hands-on guidance from pro traders and our mindset coach. The link's below if you want to see which one fits you best. And speaking of being prepared, Annii dropped her video, Market Makers vs Weekend Traders. In it, she broke down how the weekend trap played out and shared her expectations heading into the new week, the key levels she's watching, and what she's looking for as Monday kicks off. It was the perfect reset for traders stepping into the new week with a clear plan. And this is what we do inside TTC every single week, breaking down the traps, mapping the levels ahead, and keeping each other prepared. Between Annie's forward outlook, Jarrid's macro data, and the live trading sessions we host, You're never stepping into the charts blind. If you're trading alone, that's the difference. Instead of second guessing, you've got a clear playbook updated in real time with a team behind you. The link's in the description if you want to see how it all works.